I arrived when Mom was unwell. A young girl entered the CEO's workplace. The millionaire's subsequent actions changed her life forever. I'm sorry, sir. I went to my mom's work today. She had to go to the hospital due to illness. Robert Whitmore looked up from his desk in shock.
It was just another Monday morning at Whitmore Tower. Reports were stacked high, meetings lined back to back, and the CEO, Robert Whitmore, was already neck deep in numbers. That's how every Monday went. Predictable, efficient, quiet. Until the door opened and everything changed. Standing in the doorway was a little girl, no taller than the doorknob, wearing a janitor's uniform that nearly swallowed her whole. The sleeves were rolled up, the pants tied at the waist with a shoelace. She clutched a spray bottle in one hand and a folded rag in the other. Her golden curls glowed under the office lights. She didn't smile, she didn't fidget. She just stood there, serious and small. "Excuse me, sir. I came to work for my mommy today. She's sick and had to go to the hospital." Robert blinked. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he heard her right. Was this a prank? But then he saw her eyes, steady, sincere, full of quiet determination. She meant every word. "My name is Amy," she said proudly. "My mommy's name is Pamela. She works here. She's really sick today, so I came instead. I know what she does. She told me." Robert stood slowly, careful not to scare her. "How did you get here, Amy?" he asked gently. She looked down at her pink sneakers, scuffed and worn. "I took the bus. Mommy showed me the stops. I used quarters from my piggy bank." "You came here alone?" She nodded. "I remembered the building. It's the one with the shiny glass and the big gold letters. One time we passed it, I told Mommy I wanted to be a CEO here one day. She laughed, but I meant it." Robert's heart softened. This little girl hadn't come for fun, or by accident. She had come with a mission, to save her mother's job.
She looked up again. "This morning, Mommy couldn't sit up. She said her chest hurt and her head was dizzy. I gave her water. I told the neighbor, but then I remembered Mommy said if she misses work again, she might lose her job. So I came. I didn't want her to get in trouble." And in that moment, Robert Whitmore, the man who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, felt his throat tighten. This wasn't just a child with a mop. This was a daughter stepping into her mother's shoes, out of love. Fierce, innocent, unstoppable love. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Whitmore, your meeting with finance begins in 5 minutes." He pressed the button. "Cancel it." "Sir?" "All of it. This morning's schedule. Clear it." "Yes, sir." He turned back to Amy. "Are you hungry?" She shrugged. "Do you have apple juice?" He smiled. "I think I do." From behind a sleek office panel, he pulled out a small bottle of apple juice and handed it to her. Amy took it with both hands and whispered, "Thank you," then walked over to a bench near the window. She sipped quietly, legs swinging in the air, as if she belonged there. Robert didn't speak. He just watched her, this tiny girl sitting in his massive corner office, staring out at the city skyline. So small against the glass towers, and yet so brave, so full of heart. And in the silence that followed, he knew. This wasn't just an interruption to his day. This was the beginning of something.
Robert Whitmore had built an empire by being exact, on time, and never distracted. But that morning, something changed. He picked up his phone, stared at his packed schedule, and in one smooth motion, canceled everything. Amy sat quietly on the edge of the couch, her tiny legs dangling, still holding the bottle of apple juice he'd given her. She looked so out of place in that polished office, This little girl in a wrinkled janitor uniform, sipping juice like it was the most normal thing in the world. Robert glanced over from his desk. "You really want to clean?" he asked, more curious than doubtful. Amy nodded. "Mommy showed me. I even practiced on our kitchen floor." He couldn't help the small smile that tugged at the corner of his lips. She got to work immediately, kneeling on the shiny hardwood floor, spraying small patches and wiping them with a worn cloth. Every few minutes, she looked up to check if she was doing it right. Robert just watched her, silent and fascinated. But then, her little hand slipped. The spray bottle fell, and a puddle of water spread quickly across the glossy floor. Amy froze. Her eyes went wide. She looked up at him, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely there. "I didn't mean—" Robert stood up, slowly, calmly. Amy braced herself. But instead of scolding her, Robert walked over, grabbed a towel from the cabinet behind his desk, and knelt beside her. "Here," he said gently, handing it to her. "Let's clean it together." Amy stared at him for a second, not sure if she'd heard him right. Then slowly, she smiled. It wasn't much, a spilled bottle of water, but in that quiet moment, something shifted. A powerful man with a guarded heart had knelt down to help a little girl with shaking hands, and trust began to grow in the spaces where no words were spoken.
Before the janitor's uniform and quiet night shifts, Pamela had a very different life. She once sat in front rows of bright lecture halls, notebooks filled with formulas, ideas, and dreams. She was one of the best computer science students in her class, sharp, curious, always one step ahead. Her professors called her a genius. Her classmates admired her discipline. She dreamed of building something big, something that mattered. Then love happened, and everything changed. He was older, charming, promised the world in whispered words and warm arms. And Pamela, so full of heart and hope, believed him. But when she told him about the baby, he disappeared. She waited, prayed, tried to call, but the silence never broke. And when her family found out, there was no comfort, no support, just judgment, shame, and finally, silence from them too. Pamela was alone, pregnant, disowned, scared, but not broken. She worked wherever she could, stocking shelves, delivering food, cleaning bathrooms. Her dreams didn't vanish, they just had to wait. When Amy was born, Pamela held her close and whispered, "We'll make it. I don't know how, but we will." And somehow they did. She found a small, safe place to live. She took the night janitor job at Whitmore Tower because it paid a little more and gave her time during the day to care for Amy. She carried her daughter in her arms while cleaning skyscraper floors in silence. No one there knew her story. No one knew that behind the tired eyes and humble uniform was a woman who once dreamed in code and logic, who gave everything up to protect the one thing she loved most, her child. And every time she clocked in, she wasn't just mopping floors. She was rebuilding a life, one quiet shift at a time.
Pamela had been pushing herself for days, working long nights, skipping meals, carrying stress like a second skin. She didn't tell anyone she wasn't feeling well. Mothers like her don't complain. They carry on quietly. But on a cold Thursday morning, her body gave out. She collapsed in the stairwell at Whitmore Tower, right beside her cart of cleaning supplies. By the time someone found her, she was unconscious. The hospital lights were bright, too bright. Machines beeped softly around her. Pamela lay still, pale, her hands limp by her sides. And somehow, Robert Whitmore found out. He wasn't sure why it hit him so hard. Maybe it was the way her little girl had looked up at him once, without fear. Maybe it was the quiet way Pamela had cleaned his office, never asking for anything, never causing trouble. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was something deeper. He didn't send a secretary. He didn't write an email. He came himself. When he stepped into her hospital room, Pamela blinked in surprise. Her voice was weak. "Why are you here?" Robert hesitated, then sat down in the chair by her bed. "Because I should have been paying attention." There was silence, thick, uncomfortable, but honest. Then she whispered, "You didn't have to come." "I know," he said softly, "but I wanted to." Their conversation wasn't long, it wasn't loud, but something passed between them, something quiet and human. For the first time, Robert saw her not just as an employee, but as a person, a woman, a mother, a fighter. And Pamela, in her pain and weariness, saw something in him, too. Not the cold boss everyone feared, just a man trying to understand. It was the first time they truly looked at each other and didn't look away.
A week after the hospital visit, Pamela returned to work. She moved slower now, still recovering, but her eyes held that same quiet determination. She didn't ask for sympathy. She just showed up. Same uniform, same tired shoes, same silent grace. Robert noticed, more than he wanted to admit. It started with something small. One evening, Pamela entered his office to clean. On his desk was a neatly folded towel and a sticky note. In clean, even handwriting, it read, "Stay warm. You're still healing. R." She stared at it for a long moment, unsure if it was meant to be personal or professional. But the towel smelled fresh, and the words felt kind. She didn't say anything, just folded the note and tucked it into her pocket. Over the next few days, more little things happened. A bottle of hand cream appeared on her cart, something gentle, unscented, meant for dry hands. A second note came later, slipped under the mop handle. "You matter more than you know." Pamela didn't respond, not with words. But Robert started finding his trash bin emptied more gently, his blinds adjusted just right, his desk wiped clean with a little extra care. Their connection wasn't built on grand gestures or deep conversations. It grew quietly, like sunlight sneaking through a window. Each small act said what their mouths hadn't found the courage to. "I see you. I care." And in a world that often ignored people like Pamela, that meant everything.
The building always felt different at night, quieter, softer. And in that stillness, Pamela and Robert kept crossing paths. Sometimes it was in the break room, where he'd walk in late and find her sipping lukewarm coffee alone. He'd nod, she'd smile. No words, just a silent pause shared between two people who didn't know how to say what they felt yet. Other nights, he'd catch her humming softly as she cleaned the glass doors, her reflection clear in the darkened windows. She didn't know he watched sometimes, how his footsteps slowed, how something in him warmed at the sound of her voice. He began to notice little things, how she always tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous, how she used her sleeve to polish nameplates until they gleamed, how even tired, she never lost that quiet dignity. Pamela started to notice too, how he left his coffee mug in the same place each evening as if waiting for her, how he'd stop by her cart just passing through, but lingered a little longer each time, how his voice softened when he said her name. He didn't ask personal questions. She didn't offer details. But slowly, without either of them trying, Pamela became part of Robert's daily rhythm. Not just the woman who cleaned his office, but the presence that made the place feel less cold, less lonely. Something was changing. Not loud, not sudden, just steady, like the slow turning of a page. And neither of them wanted to stop it.
Some ghosts don't stay buried. One morning, Pamela was cleaning the lobby when a voice stopped her cold. Pamela. She turned, and there he was. Daniel, Amy's father, the man who had once promised forever, then vanished the moment things got real. He looked smug, well-dressed, like someone who never had to pay for what he broke. Pamela's heart raced, not from love, but fear. "What do you want?" she whispered. He smirked, eyes drifting toward the executive elevator. "I hear you've moved up. Whitmore Tower, huh? Nice gig. Even nicer, connections." She didn't respond, but he knew. Somehow he knew. And then came the threat, coded in a smile. "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Not if you help me out with a few things." That's when she realized Daniel hadn't changed. He didn't want Amy. He didn't want her. He wanted control. And now he was ready to use her past and her present. By the end of the week, whispers started. "She's just a janitor, right? Why's she always near the executive's floor? I heard she has a kid with someone on staff." The walls of Whitmore Tower suddenly felt cold. Pamela worked in silence, eyes down, heart pounding. And Robert, he noticed the shift. The way people looked at her now. The way she flinched at every whispered laugh. The way she avoided his eyes. He didn't know the full story yet, but he would. And when he did, he'd make sure no one got to hurt her again. The rumors had grown too loud to ignore. That morning, Robert walked into the top-floor boardroom. Sharp suit, calm face, but something in his eyes had changed. He wasn't there just as the CEO. He was there as a man who was done hiding. The board members sat around the polished table, shifting papers and clearing throats. "Mr. Whitmore," one of them began stiffly, "there have been concerns about your involvement with a cleaning staff member," another added, not bothering to hide the disapproval. "It raises questions about judgment, about reputation." Robert stayed silent for a moment, letting the words hang in the cold air. Then he spoke, steady, clear, and full of quiet fire. "Her name is Pamela. She's intelligent, strong, and she's done more for this company's spirit than most of the people in this room." A pause. Some exchanged awkward glances, others frowned. One leaned forward. "So are you confirming there's a relationship?" Robert didn't flinch. He looked each of them in the eye and said simply, "Yes, and I'm not ashamed of it." You could have heard a pin drop. "I won't allow anyone to reduce her to rumors. She's not a scandal. She's not a secret. She's someone I deeply admire, and yes, someone I love." Gasps, shuffling chairs, a few stunned faces, but Robert stood tall. For once, Pamela wasn't hiding in the background. She was at the center of the truth, spoken proudly, in a room built to silence people like her. He knew the fallout might come. Whispers might grow louder, but so would the respect. Because this wasn't just about love. It was about choosing courage when the world expected silence.
The courtroom was cold, not just from the air conditioning, but from the weight of what was at stake. Pamela sat at the long table, hands clenched tightly in her lap,
her eyes fixed ahead. She had never been in a room like this before, but she wasn't alone. Robert sat beside her, calm and focused, flanked by a team of top lawyers he'd quietly arranged for her. His presence was steady, unshakable. Daniel entered late. Arrogant as ever, he tossed a smug glance Pamela's way. But his smirk faltered the moment he saw who sat next to her. The room was filled with quiet whispers. Robert Whitmore, CEO of the Tower, here for her? The judge called the hearing to order. Daniel tried to argue, to paint himself as the concerned father, but he hadn't so much as asked about Amy in years. Pamela's lawyer, confident and well-prepared, laid out a timeline that exposed the truth: abandonment, neglect, and manipulation. Daniel's charm didn't work here, and Robert's quiet power in that courtroom was undeniable. The truth had a voice now. By the end of the hearing, Daniel stood up, flustered, humiliated. He withdrew his claim. Pamela sat in stunned silence. It was over. The moment they stepped out of the courtroom, Pamela finally breathed. Truly breathed. For the first time in years, no one could take her daughter away. She turned to Robert, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude, disbelief, and something deeper that words couldn't name. He simply nodded, as if to say, "I told you, I've got you." The first time Pamela stepped back into Whitmore Tower, not with a mop, but with a laptop, her hands trembled slightly. She wasn't dressed in her usual janitor uniform. Today she wore a simple blazer and slacks Robert had sent over with a note that read, "There's more in you than you've ever been allowed to show." Robert had offered her a role in the company's tech department. It wasn't charity. He knew her background, top of her class in computer science before life turned on her. He saw the fire still burning under all the dust and pain. Pamela hesitated at first. The office felt like another world. But she took the desk, opened the computer, and started slowly, asking questions, studying hard, staying late. The first project she contributed to, a glitch in the internal server. She fixed it, quietly, perfectly. And Robert? He didn't hover. He simply watched from afar, a quiet smile tugging at his lips every time she solved something no one else could. Amy came with her some afternoons, drawing beside her desk or handing out cookies to the staff. The employees, once strangers, now greeted Pamela like a peer. They knew her story, and more than that, they respected it. One morning, as Pamela stood giving a small presentation on a tech update, her voice strong and clear, Robert paused at the glass wall outside the conference room. For a moment, he just looked at her, not as someone he helped, but as someone he admired. She wasn't rising because of him. She was rising because she was ready.
The air was light and soft, filled with the gentle hum of laughter and birdsong. It was just a simple picnic on a quiet Sunday. No grand plans, no audience. Just the three of them on a checkered blanket under a wide tree in a sunlit park. Amy ran barefoot in the grass, her giggles chasing butterflies. Pamela sat nearby, her eyes calm, watching Amy play with a rare sense of peace. Her heart had been through storms. Now it was learning to trust the calm. Robert arrived carrying the sandwiches and juice boxes he'd insisted on packing himself. He sat beside Pamela, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. They didn't talk much. There was no need. It was the kind of silence that felt full, not empty. After lunch, Amy curled up between them with her coloring book. Robert reached into his pocket with a slight tremble in his fingers. No speech, no spotlight, just a small velvet box and his voice, quiet and steady. "Marry me," he said, "not because we've been through so much,
but because I want every ordinary moment with you. Every day, every season. Pamela stared at him, eyes wide, then soft. Her hand flew to her mouth. She didn't answer with words at first, just leaned in and kissed him gently, tears slipping down her cheek. It was the yes she had never dared to imagine she'd say again. Amy looked up at them, her little voice confident and bright. "Can I call you Dad now?" Robert blinked, tears rising. He pulled her close. "Only if I can call you my daughter." And just like that, they weren't broken pieces anymore. They were a family.
Pamela stood at the front of the glass-walled conference room, her voice steady, her ideas clear. The same hands that once scrubbed the floors of Whitmore Tower now sketched bold visions on a touchscreen. Her team, diverse, respectful, eager, watched her not as a former janitor, but as a leader, a woman who had earned every inch of her place. Outside, headlines buzzed with the story. From janitor to tech leader, Pamela Hayes rewrites the rules. But she didn't care for the noise. What mattered was this: walking into a room and being seen, not pitied, not judged, just seen. Amy waited outside the office, proudly holding up her school project. A family tree, with Robert's name written in bright pink crayon under Dad. Pamela knelt, kissed her daughter's forehead, and whispered, "You gave me everything." Later that night, on the apartment balcony, Robert watched them through the window. Pamela helping Amy brush her teeth, laughing softly when toothpaste foamed up her nose. He turned toward the city skyline, eyes misty. "They gave me more than love. They gave me a reason, a home, a heart I didn't know was broken, now healed." Pamela didn't just walk into my office that day. She walked into my life and rewrote it, with grace, grit, and a little girl who called me Dad before I believed I could be one. And with that, the story closed. Not with grand fireworks or public applause, but with quiet joy, with home, with heart.